Hi, welcome to Danny After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight will be part 2 on my 2-part series on Phil Spector. So if you missed part 1, go on back and check it out so you're all caught up. Now, Phil Spector, part 2. Let's go ahead and dive on in. Phil's controlling attitude towards his wife Ronnie ultimately led to the end of their marriage. Ronnie claimed that Phil showed her a gold coffin with a glass top in his basement, and he promised to kill her and display her should she ever choose to leave him. He had also forbidden her from speaking to the Rolling Stones or touring with the Beatles because he feared she would cheat on him. Later, it came out in the late 1960s that Phil reportedly kept Ronnie locked inside of their mansion. She even claimed that he hid her shoes to dissuade her from even walking outside. Phil's son ended up claiming something similar. He claimed that he was kept locked inside of his room with a pot in the corner to be used as a toilet. Well, ultimately, Ronnie filed for divorce in 1972. She ended up writing a book about her experiences and said years later, quote, "I can only say that when I left in the early 70s, I knew that if I didn't leave at that time, I was going to die there," end quote. In the end, the couple had 3 children that they had adopted. 1998, Ronnie Spector and the other Ronettes sued Phil Spector for allegedly cheating them out of royalties and licensing fees. They ultimately won a $3 million judgment. However, an appeals court later reversed that decision. They did that for upholding the terms of the group's 1963 contract as binding. Stories of Phil's gunplay use mounted over the years. One story was his discharging a firearm while he was in the studio with John Lennon. Another story was Phil placing a loaded pistol at Leonard Cohen's head during the sessions for Death of a Ladies' Man. Another story was Phil forcing Dee Dee Ramone to play bass guitar to Phil's exact specifications at gunpoint. Now, February 3rd, 2003. Police received and responded to a 911 phone call from Phil Spector's driver. He had discovered the body of actress Lana Clarkson at Phil's mansion in Alhambra, California. Lana was pronounced dead at the scene. She had injuries that were consistent with a gun being placed in her mouth and fired. She had been working the night before as a hostess at the House of Blues in Los Angeles, California. That night, she went home with Phil Spector. Well, about 40 minutes after the shooting, Phil was taken into police custody. But it didn't go over so smoothly. Police had to subdue Phil by using a stun gun. November 20th, 2003. Phil was indicted for Lana's murder. September 2004. Phil was ordered to stand trial in Los Angeles, California. Now, prior to and during the trial itself, Phil went through at least 3 sets of attorneys. This included Robert Shapiro, Leslie Abramson, Marsha Morrissey, and Bruce Cutler. You may recognize some of those names. Attorney Linda Kenny Madden then became the lead lawyer for the closing arguments of the trial. October 28th, 2005, a judge ruled that potentially damning statements Phil made to police could be used against him at trial. Phil's lawyers tried everything to suppress a statement made by Phil after Lana was found dead. That quote was Phil said, "I think I killed somebody," end quote. His lawyers tried to argue that comments attributed to the music producer should be thrown out because he was suffering from prescription drug withdrawal symptoms at the time. In the meantime, Phil remained free. Yes, he remained free on $1 million bail while he awaited trial, and that was scheduled to begin on April 24th, 2006. However, the trial had been postponed several times since then, first to January 16th, 2007, then to March 5th, 2007, and finally to March 19th, 2007. During this time, Phil got married. He married an aspiring singer and actress named Rachel Short on September 1st, 2006. The 26-year-old appeared in the Playboy magazine before her marriage to Phil. March 19th, 2007, jury selection began, and 300 prospective jurors were screened. April 19th, 2007, a jury of 9 men and 3 women were selected, and they were ultimately sworn in. April 25th, 2007, opening statements began. During the trial, famed forensic expert Henry Lee was accused of hiding crucial evidence that the DA's office claimed could prove Phil's guilt. Also, the coroner who examined Lana's body concluded that the bruising on her tongue indicated that the gun was shoved inside of her mouth. Then, the Los Angeles Sheriff's criminalist DNA expert stated that only Lana's DNA was found on the handgun. This ultimately helped aid Phil's defense that she shot herself. The DNA expert also found none of Phil's DNA on Lana's fingernails. This hurt the prosecution's argument that Lana struggled with Phil. September 18th, 2007, the jury reported that they had reached an impasse. They were split 7-5. Well, now September 20th, 2007, the jury ultimately resumed their deliberations. September 26th, 2007, the jury came back and stated it could not reach a verdict. The jurors announced a deadlock, 10 for guilty and 2 for not guilty. Judge Fiedler had to then declare a mistrial. February 3rd, 2007, Sandy Gibbons, who was the spokesperson for the district attorney's office, confirmed that preparations were being made to retry Phil Spector immediately. Early December 2007, San Francisco lawyer Dorian Weinberg had agreed to serve as Phil's attorney. All of the remaining members of Phil's previous defense team have either resigned or were dismissed after the mistrial. Now, April 11th, 2008, Phil lost another battle in his bid to disqualify the judge presiding at his murder trial. Yes, he tried to get the judge disqualified. Superior Court Judge Larry Fiedler, who presided over Phil's 2007 mistrial, had been accused by the defense as showing a bias against Phil. October 20th, 2008, jury selection in the murder retrial began, with Judge Fiedler again presiding. So Phil Spector lost that battle. February 19th, 2009, The trial visited Phil's home for an hour, where the jury inspected the scene and submitted 9 questions to the judge. March 27th, 2009, jury deliberation began. The goal this time was to not have another mistrial. April 13th, 2009, the jury returned with a verdict, and that verdict was guilty. They convicted Phil of second-degree murder. In addition, he was found guilty of using a firearm in the commission of a crime. May 29th, 2009, Phil was sentenced to 19 years to life in the California state prison system for Lana's death. Phil would be 88 years old before he was eligible for parole. January 17th, 2021, Phil Spector passed away. That is the case of Phil Spector. Thank you for sticking around for another episode of Danny After Dark. If you have any questions on the case, leave it down below. Let's be interactive. Phil was very prominent in the music industry, so any comments, certainly leave them down below. Let's chat. Do you have a suggestion for a case that you'd like me to cover? Well, leave it down below. You may see it featured in an upcoming episode. Until next time, remember, we don't live in darkness. Darkness lives in us.